in the General Assembly, moving through the General Assembly, that would call for the placing of some type of statue or monument or marker for Africans that came through Sullivan's Island. So I said, no. I said, they didn't call me, they didn't call us here at the park. So he said, well, I think that's happening. So I knew other people in our state government. So I called, I said, hey, what's going on? What y'all doing? Tell me about what it is. So the fellow acknowledged that, S719 is going through our general government, and all it's doing is asking that something be done. It didn't direct. It didn't say we got the money to help you pay for it. It didn't say it needs to be done in 2 years or 3 years. It just said something needs to be done. So about 6 months later, I got a call from a friend of mine who works in the school system, Dr. Barbara Dilligard, and she said, in next summer, Mike, all of the African-American black schools is having a big grand reunion of all the schools. Got C.A. Brown, Burke, Rivers, James Island, John, all the schools, all the black schools. And we want a service project so we can say we left something behind by having our big major event. And then she said, well, I read S719, and some of us think that might be a good thing. Do you think it's possible to do something? So I said, well, let me be real here with you. I said, I can't attest to what the U.S. government might do to help facilitate this, okay? Because if you were to put some on this side of the fence, is Sullivan's Island. On the other side is federal property. So for us to put this over there, we had to go through a whole lot of people. And I said, I don't know if that's possible or not. I said, but let me do this here. Let me go and talk to the mayor of Sullivan's Island and ask him, would he have a problem with this? Because at the end of the day, he's responsible for the island. Yeah. So I sat down and had a conversation with the mayor and just told him point blank, what we were thinking, what we desired to do. And he said, hey, I don't have a problem with it. It's fine with me. So I went back and I told the folks from the reunion. And so what we then began doing in late 98, early 99, is working with the Department of Archives and History, who manages putting up markers like what you see here. And then we began drafting the language, because we knew this was groundbreaking. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. This didn't exist no other place. So we had to get it right in the words that we use. We had to make sure that the message that we were sending out, because thousands of people have read this since it's been here since 1999. We wanted them to leave educated. We wanted them to leave with understanding. We wanted them to leave with awareness. We want them to leave with sensitivity. We want them to leave with understanding. So we had to make sure that the words were right, in order. And then we had to make sure that the history was right. Because you put the wrong thing up and people see it, then they can come all over you. So we had to do all of that. But then we also had to leave it where people can see themselves in it. And understand that this is still a work in progress. Yeah. So we went through the process. We eventually, this is probably number 8 or 9. We eventually agreed on the text. The folks in Columbia, they didn't have much to say. They said, okay, that's fine. So, they already had the money to get this done. And so there's a company that make these things here that you see here and there, all the way in Ohio. So we reached out to the gentleman who made it. He had a big truck just like that one. And we told him that, in July, the week of July the 4th, we're gonna have a big public event here. And all the folks in all the various black African American schools are going to come, and we want to dedicate this. So he said, okay, that's not a problem. We can do that. So the invitations were set up. We had the program all designed and put in place. And then when it came time for us to get the marker signed, there was a trucking strike. And so truckers were not delivering packages. So I called the guy and I said, I've forgotten his name. I said, man, we've already planned this program, okay? It was in about a week and a half. And I noticed a trucking strike, but you got to get this marker here from Ohio. You got to get this marker here. So he said, I got you. So he and his wife hopped in their big truck just like this, put the marker in the back of their truck, and they drove all the way from Ohio.
There you go.
So now when they got here, I said, okay, you know, I should have thought about how we're gonna set this up. So I went back to the mayor and I said, Mr. Mayor, I said, I need the help of your public service people. I said, I need them, you know, to donate their time and energy that they can dig the hole, that they can put the cement, concrete, whatever in it, set this in place, put this in place, and then I said, I'll get something from our park here and we'll cover it up. And then we'll have it covered until the day that we dedicate it in July of 1999. So he said, okay, that's fine, no big deal. So we did that. So imagine that people were brought here as enslaved individuals in the early 1700s. But in the late 1990s, the island which these people were brought to helped put this in place.
Yes, yes.
And didn't even say no to the permission.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So here we are now in July, I think July 4th weekend. This whole area out here is filled with people, 500 people or so. And all the schools in the community here to dedicate this. I'm gonna leave you with two names, and they're gonna have importance as we move along. So I helped develop the program, and different people spoke. In fact, I think we had the ambassador from Sierra Leone to speak, if I remember correctly. He did. He came and he spoke. The mayor of the city of Charleston at that time, Joe Riley, he spoke. And Nelson Rivers, who at that time was with the NAACP, he was the MC. So we went about the process, you know, dedicate the program and unveil this. So now we got this. The same day that we had this dedicated, my boss and I had a conversation with another person who will become important as we move along, and you see later on, a man by the name of Ed Ball. He wrote a book called Slaves in the Family. And Ed was a part of the program too. So we met with Ed and we said, well, Ed, you know, we got this. This is good, but we need more meat on the bone, which you will see later on. So that's like 10 years before we did what we did later on. Remember I said there were two things that came out of this marker here? Now you all have been to the International African American Museum, haven't you?
Yes.
Okay. Remember I told you that Mayor Riley spoke as a part of this? Well, about 6 months later, in the State of the City address, he was talking about, you know, what he envisioned for the future, for the next century, and addressing history, culture, and preservation. And then he slipped in his speech that we need to have a museum that address what we have not addressed. So the next morning I called him. I said, well, Mayor Riley, I don't even live in the city of Charleston, I'm in Mount Pleasant. But I heard what you said last night. Did you really mean that? Or you were just saying that to add words in your presentation? So he said, no, I really meant that. And a year later, he began the process, working with myself and others. And I think in this very month, 24 years ago, we had the first board meeting for the International African American Museum. We didn't know how we were going to get there. We didn't know how we were going to pay for it. We didn't know where it was going to be, but we know it was coming. Because, and how I know this affected him, You know, God works in strange ways. Fast forward to after the tragic event of Mother Emanuel. I was at a memorial service in which he spoke and Nelson Rivers spoke, who was here in '99. And in Mayor Raleigh's speech, he said, if I wasn't a part of this, we wouldn't have a museum on the way coming. He said that. So I asked him after I said, you sure about that? He said, yes, I'm confident. Then in the same memorial service, way after this, 17 years later at least, Nelson Rivers said, if I wasn't a part of this, I wouldn't have encouraged the NAACP to bring a boycott to stop people from doing business in the state until the Confederate flag came down.
How?
Something simple as this brought two movements that we could never imagine. But just imagine when I had spoken to the folks in Columbia and I said, no, that's not possible. Sullivan's Island's not going to do this. And the Park Service is not going to help. That's when I said to you all in the car that I know that the work that I've been involved with, working with others, is because I've been called, chosen, appointed, and anointed. I know that.
Amen. Amen.
I know that. And so as we continue on our journey today, looking at other places and sites, just bear that in mind. Things just don't happen.
Amen.
You know, even my arrival here in 1980, you know, it's supposed to have been two of us come. Another friend of mine is supposed to have come. At the last moment, he backed out. So I came in by myself. And the person, the other African-American woman who recruited me to come here and work, left the day I got here. She left the day I got here. But I knew, well, I didn't know then, what I know now, that was destiny for me to be here. And the way I knew that I was tested in that way is within 3 weeks of me being here. When we walk out to the water, we'll be able to see Fort Sumter, where the American Civil War occurred and started, which has tentacles to this. And I was peppered with these questions. Why are you here as a black man? And how do you fit in telling the story of the American Civil War to the public? And what version of the story will you be telling? Now, I didn't call and tell my parents that. I didn't tell my co-workers that. I didn't even tell my supervisor that. I just kept it to myself. But something inside of me said, well, you know, maybe today while you are here at Fort Sumter, you may want to look at where you're working to maybe have an understanding why you asked that question. So the first thing I did is I went to the bookstore. Any museum you go to, you should go to the bookstore. Okay, because that helps to you have an understanding where you are. When I went into the bookstore, I wasn't in the bookstore in terms of any books relating to me. I said, okay. So I did the second thing that you all would do. I went then to the museum, as you all have been doing since you've been here. So that's how you tell the story. Well, when I looked into the museum and saw the exhibits and displays and waysides that was there, I wasn't in there either. But then something said, well, Mike, that museum has been in since 1961. You wouldn't be in it. And then I listened to the presentations that my coworkers were providing about where I was, and they didn't say anything about me there either. So I just stopped right there. And I said, there's two things at play. Either I'm out of place, or the agency that I'm working for is out of touch. And I didn't believe that I was out of place. So that experience, 44 years ago, in the summer of 1980, helps me to stand before you today.
Amen.
I take claim for nothing. I just do what I've been instructed. And as we talked about in the car, being in the room, being in the place, and having a voice, sometimes is all you got.
Amen.
So as two things I want to do from here. I need you to make sure you got your walking shoes on. I want you to walk to the water. We sing "Take Me to the Water" all the time.
Yeah.
I think that's important for you all to do that, being that you're from the other side of the water. But I want you to understand the water that we have endured on this side. And let me just be real and transparent. I realize over the decades and centuries, and more so in the last 60 to 70 years, folks have tried to bring an ism and a schism between us. I'm just being real, okay? I know that. Those of you who are from the continent and those of us on this side of the water. I know that. But I don't believe in that. I don't subscribe into that, and I don't even walk into that. And so, being here and doing this is all of our calling.
Amen.
And I would hope as we continue on our journey today that all the things that you've asked that I tried to answer, that you may have learned that you did not know, or that I may gather from you that I did not know, will make us better.
Amen.
At the end of the day, that's all we got left.
Amen.
Okay?
Yes.
Great job.
Amen.
Sir Michael Allen.
Why do you want to do that? That's not on the property of the fort. PST house for Lazarado.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. I thought it was past as in
Yeah, PST
Okay.
house. HOA. Yeah. Right. So he said, we've never dealt with that before. So I said, well, okay, I understand that. I said, but let's be open-minded. Everything here in colonial South Carolina was about money, power, and influence. Okay? The people who were bought and kept in that building down there is about money, power, and influence. But you don't want no one to come take your money, power, or influence. So therefore, what was built to protect that? The fort. The fort then and later on. So if we're going to talk about the importance of fortifications in the harbor of Charleston, not just to protect the good citizens of Charleston, but we need to say how that also fits into the African slave trade.
Yes, I agree.
So,
Exalting the song and changing God's people and making us whole. It is a new hour. Visitation in a brand new day. Feeling the Father, exalting the Son, and changing God's people, and making
It's a new day. It's a new